10 years ago, I was sitting in a dark living room eating ramen soup, tuna and crackers with my lights off, cutting up pallets to heat my damn house in the winter. Barely high school educated, man. You know, there's a lot of crap wrong with our country right now, but it's still America, man. Capitalism works for those who are willing to work, man. I know that's going to trigger a lot of people. You got to own this because, you know, I'm blaming my ex-wife for my problems. I'm blaming my job. I'm blaming the market. I'm blaming these brokers that wrote me all these loans. This was you, man. You got yourself here. And I'm just sitting in the house, and I just remember this night. I'm like, this is not going to be my legacy. Flexibility of mind, that is a key to this whole thing. I put like 20 grand in those covered call, and the NAV erosion was disgusting. I'm like, oh, I'm out of here. What's Charlie Munger say? Like, you need 5 good businesses and you're off to the races. But how many of us can pick those 5 good businesses?
Welcome back to another go-round worth of Masters of the Market. Now this week is special guest, one I cannot be more excited to have on, Danny B, who went from just about broke to almost millionaire status, but here to tell that story is Danny himself. So Danny, welcome to Masters of the Market. I want to pass you the first question right off the bat here and just ask you about your story and how exactly you got to where you are today.
Happy to be here, buddy. Been a fan of yours for a long time. Never thought I'd be sitting on the other side of the camera with you, so I'm pretty stoked. My story. Well, I grew up in we were a pretty low income family. My dad was a mechanic. He was in the Navy. We started out, pretty poor. Money was kind of a taboo subject. You really didn't talk about it. But I was always kind of, interested in money. Kind of fascinated by this exchange of value, this paper currency that was troubles and woes of so many people. So I was always like an industrious little effer. Started out, cutting lawns, and I worked on a farm down the road when I was probably 11, 12 years old. So I always was piling cash, and, my mom was big on saving, save. I never learned anything about investing as a kid. My parents, they bought a house we moved into that was, had snakes in the attic, and it was just falling down, and they just made a beautiful home out of it just through their hard work. I mean, my parents were just the most amazing, hardworking people you've ever known. And they, eventually succeeded in their own ways. But yeah. So that was kind of like my childhood. Probably when I was about 16, I was always getting real good grades, but I hated school, man. I hated it so much. I just wanted to work. I just wanted to be out there making money and working. Barely graduated high school. I worked all kinds of odd end jobs. At one point I was, packaging peanuts on a conveyor belt in downtown Pittsburgh one winter because I couldn't find any work. And then I kind of got into carpentry after that. It was kind of became my passion. I loved it. I loved building all the different aspects of building homes and additions and decks. And I love putting in a hard day work. Kind of where I got into the field that I'm still in now. But I had this chip on my shoulder, right? Because I was this, barely educated kid. All my friends, in my early 20s, they're graduating college, they're getting these good jobs. And, there's me. I bought my first house when I was 19. It cost $20,000. So it tells you about the area that I was living in. I was a little bit envious of all of my friends succeeding in their high paying jobs, and I'm just stuck in this little rut. So I was always working hard, man. I just always would work 6 days a week, and I'm just not getting ahead. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I always liked to read, and I think I came across the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. It was kind of like the big light bulb moment for the young me. I remember that the cash flow quadrant where you're either an employer or a self-employed business owner and investor. And I'm like, I'm this employee. Like I can only exchange my time for money. Like, that kind of was a light bulb moment where I needed to level up. Started my own business probably when I was like 22, 21, and started my first business. Crashed and burned pretty bad on that one. When you're that young, you got to take the jobs that no one else wants to do. And I'm doing these 3-story roofs, and I had my cousin working for me, and the jobs we did, man, it's a wonder we're still alive, breaking our backs. So I did that for a while. When that failed, I got a job building these sorter systems in factories, and was traveling around the country. They'd fly you out. You'd work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, 30 days in a row. And you'd come home for a week, and you go back out and do that. And so they would give you like $1,200 per diem money for food and everything. And, you know, the first week, the guys would go out to the strip clubs, blow all their per diem money, and I would just hoard my money. So at the end of the month, I'm going home with like $800 cash. So I'm banking all this money, and, you know, I'm reading all these books. And after a couple months, I had enough where I was gonna, well, no, first, the guys, this is right after like 9/11. And so they're like, hey, we're buying stocks in like United Airlines. Like it's too big to fail, and the government's going to save them. And so I'm like, oh, this sounds cool. Like stocks. Yeah, I'm going to do this. And I lost thousands of dollars for this young kid. I mean, it was devastating. It was, yeah, never listen to your buddies at work when they give you stock input. So I went back to saving my money, and I saved up enough where I could buy this duplex, which also cost me like $20,000. Not in a good neighborhood. The house probably should have been condemned. So I quit that job once I bought that duplex, and I started working as a carpenter again. But every free moment was put into fixing this house. And, you know, my dad was always helping me. My grandpap would be down there every day. My uncle would come help me. And I got it all fixed up, got it rented out. It was cash flowing. Because, I mean, the mortgage was like $300 a month or something. And, you know, each side was renting for like $400 a month. So I'm making money. And I bought another cheap house and fixed that one up, and it's cash flowing for me. And I'm on my way, man. I'm probably like 24, 25 years old at this point. Then I met my ex-wife. This is probably about 2007. And she's a great person. And we were just young kids, idiots, whatever. But so this is about 2007. And, you know, my mortgage broker calls me up. Hey, Dan, why are you sitting on all this equity? Like this house you bought for $20,000, it's worth $50,000. And this duplex you bought for $20,000, it's worth $60,000. You can, you know, take this money out and you have all this money and refinance these loans. I'll get you a low rate. And I mean, at the time I'm paying like 2% interest, and they give me these loans for like, you know, 9% interest, but they're throwing all this cash at me. And I'm like, wow, this sounds great. I'll have all this money. I can do all these things. And my future mother-in-law at the time, she didn't like me, which, you know, to be fair, I probably wouldn't have liked me, 24-year-old me, for her daughter either. But she was all about, she wanted to see my bank accounts and stuff. And at the time I had like, you know, $1,000 in the bank, but I had all this equity. So whenever these mortgage brokers are calling me up, you know what it was like in 2006 and 7, they're just throwing money at people. I mean, it was ridiculous. I'm like, this is great. Refinance all these properties. And we all know what happened a year later with 2008. Now, like I couldn't rent these places out. I was in debt on these places. I'm paying a mortgage that was twice as big as what I had, so they're not cash flowing anymore. I just started bleeding money, and it was bad. And then I got divorced. Like we were married for like a year, and you know, it was that starter marriage that some young kids get into. After that, you know, I'm broke. I mean, I just am in debt up my eyeballs, sitting in my house with the lights off, trying to save money. So don't have money to pay the electric bill. I'm borrowing money off my dad to buy 5 gallons of heating oil because I didn't have money for heating oil, and I'm like cutting up pallets for my wood burner. I mean, it was a pretty depressing time. And I remember I had to put my dog down, who was like my 14-year-old best friend, shadow, the one consistent thing in my life for over a decade. And I'm just sitting in the house, and I just remember this night, I'm like, this is not going to be my legacy. I'm like, this is not how I'm going to live this life scraping by. I'm like, you know, I'm better than this. And that's, I guess the big thing then was just mind switch of like, you got to own this. Cause you know, I'm blaming my ex-wife for my problems. I'm blaming my job. I'm blaming the market. I'm blaming these brokers that wrote me all these loans. Like, no, like this was you, man. You got yourself here. You got to get yourself out of here. You know, Ari, like, some people are strong enough to like make these switches in these bad environments, but I wasn't. Like I just kept people pulling me all these different ways, and I had a problem saying no when people needed help, and I couldn't get out of this funk. So I literally like packed everything I owned into the back of a beat up Ford Ranger pickup truck, rusting, you know, barely passed inspection in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. And this company I was working for had this position like in Seattle for this installer. They're taking over this area. And I'm like, you know, I'll go. And I'm like, you guys loan me some money to get out there though. And they're like, yeah, you know, we'll pay for your moving. And they gave me $1,000. And the house I was living in, I had to sell at a loss. I had to write a check on the day of closing to give to the bank, because I couldn't sell this house to even break even. And then I headed west. That's when things really started to change. So I got out there and I'm working as an installer. The truck that I drove across the country literally broke in half like a couple weeks after I got to Seattle. I mean, it was it was pretty rough. And the cost of living in Seattle was like insane. So I had to rent a room off this awesome lady. I was, renting a room in her house. And I'm working as an installer out there and quickly went from installer to like a crew leader to a quality control personnel. And then they actually made me an installation manager. And, I was just like Mr. Corporate Man. I'm doing everything I can for this company. And eventually I worked my way up to be a general manager of Seattle. And then we took over the Portland market and I was the general manager of the Pacific Northwest. For the first time in my life, like I had some disposable income. And that's when I'm also running with these, like the Seattle area, you got Microsoft and Boeing and Amazon. And I'm meeting like all these high-end functional people that I've never been exposed to. And I'm like, these people are like younger than me. There's these tech coders. I mean, these people are just super high performing. They're driving their Teslas and their Mercedes. And, I'm still in this beat up pickup truck. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, how are these people so successful and I'm not? Like, I'm working 60 hours a week and I got a little bit of extra money finally. I just don't see how to get from A to B. And that's when I started like digging back into the books. And this is like 2013, 14. So podcasts are starting to become a thing. And I just started devouring all this financial information. And, I heard about Roth IRAs for the first time. I'm like, oh, I need to do this. And I think it was like $4,000 or maybe $5,000 to fully fund a Roth. So I'm working on salary at this time and I'm already working like, 60, 70 hours a week. But I made a deal with the company that if I went out and did installs on a Saturday, they'd pay me that extra amount for these installs. So I did the math. I need to do this many Saturdays to this many jobs and I'll be able to fund this Roth IRA. I think it's like 2014. I did that and I got my $5,000 in there and, I'm checking it like every week. I'm like, well, when's this compounding thing start to happen? And I get like, Schwab bank interest, 5 cents. I'm like, this isn't right. And so back to the books. And I'm like, oh, you have to invest the money in your Roth IRA. So started from there and started buying some ETFs and some stocks. And so, that was a big year of acquiring knowledge. But I'm doing the math. And so I'd have been, mid to upper 30s at this point. And I'm starting from zero. So I'm like, holy crap, like I'll have to do this for the next 30 years to be a millionaire the way I'm working at this time. I'm like, there's got to be another way. Like, look at all these people around me. I'm like, so, I came to understand that if you're in your 20s and you start socking this money away, like the compounding growth, by the time, you retire, you're going to be a millionaire. But if you're starting late, you're not going to get rich you eventually will, but you got to have like these lump sums of money. Like if you want to increase the velocity of this money, you got to shovel in some money. And so I started doing some risky plays and watching all these new YouTubers, and I lost a lot of money again. And then back to education, I learned how to dig into stocks and look at their debt levels, look at their PE ratios, look at, their 200-day moving average, all these things. I spent hours and hours and hours. And so, I got a little better and I started investing in the markets, but I realized that this isn't what I know. This isn't what's going to get me rich, not at this stage of the game. And that's when I went back to that cash flow quadrant. I'm like, I need to start a business. And so the company I was working for at the time, the big problem they had was finding installers. I'm running back and forth to Portland every week. When I'm in Portland, Seattle's falling apart. When I'm in Seattle, Portland's falling apart. I'm absolutely miserable. At the time, I was living with my now wife, Amanda, and I'm destroying this relationship because I'm this miserable guy and I'm trying to make all these things work and it's not working. It's back to that ownership. What's going on here? Why? What's wrong with me? Why am I not making this work? And that's when, I had this another revelation that, I'm not a manager. I'm not a CEO. This isn't me. I'm not corporate man. I don't thrive here. I hate this. I hate dealing with the drama of the salesman, these installers that never show up, the drama of the office workers. I'm like, I'm no Elon Musk, man. I'm no Jeff Bezos. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And so I realized I'm not a general, but what I am is a fucking awesome captain. You give me a small squad of men, the general tells me to go take out a bridge, that bridge is getting taken out. And that's where I'm happy. And I'm happy working with my hands. I'm happy with these, being on a job site with guys where we're like, bragging each other and having a good time and yelling and playing the music. And I bought a truck, got a gutter machine, and I hired these two guys like all on the lowdown. I didn't want the company to know I was doing this. And I set them up and I trained them to be installers, and I started making all this money from this truck. Because as the manager, I'm paying the subcontractors and stuff, and I'm seeing what these guys are making. I'm like, this is a great opportunity for someone that's wired like me. So, eventually I left the corporate job. I went full into my own business. I had like 3 or 4 trucks running. I had got a couple subcontractors working underneath me. And not that I didn't have hard days, especially trying to work in Seattle, man, with, I had a truck stolen. I had multiple trucks vandalized. I kept getting these crazy fines for not having the right permits and standing too high on a step ladder. They got all these code enforcement officers. But I was so much happier, and I'm making money, and I built this business up, and then I sold it, and I got a 6-figure check. And Ari, I had $1,000 to my name like 6 years ago. And I just got a 6-figure check for selling this business. Plus I'm making like 6 figures off of the business. And I'm like, oh, this is how you do this. And my wife and I, we moved into a couple, like we bought our first condo that was super cheap and wrecked, fixed it all up, flipped it, doubled our money, moved into another house that probably should have been condemned. We fixed it all up, gutted it, renovated it. Like this is the height of the COVID insanity. We like more than doubled our money on that one. That's kind of the journey I took. And now I'm back. I got the money to put in the market to make things happen, less hands-on. So
this is the perfect spot to just ask you right off the bat, first of all, wow, the story is powerful. And if I'm being honest and transparent, the reason I wanted to bring you on is because of the power in your story. I mean, you literally go from broke to just about right now, almost in that 7-figure club, which is impressive. Even if you never hit the 7-figure club, your story is impressive as is. I just want to ask you, there's so many people out there that, at least from what I've seen, what I've read, I talk to a lot of people, whether it's on Masters of the Market or just through messaging on Blossom, and a lot of people have excuses, man. What would you say to the people who have excuses, who say, I can't do this, I'll never get there, the good one, I don't have the money to invest? What do you say to them?
You've got to take ownership for where you are in your life. You've got to plan where you want to go. What's the Latin saying? Nois ipsum, know thyself. I can't remember how to say it. You have to figure out who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Get a plan. Seek out the mentors. Seek out the information. I have this rule where when I want to learn a new subject, every book I listen to, every podcast I listen to, I get 2% of 100% of what I need to know about that subject. So I need to read 50 books, listen to 50 hours of podcasts before I can grasp this new subject. And you got to start. I mean, you got to do it. It's literally the mindset that changed my life. It wasn't, reading this one book. It wasn't learning this one thing. It was just that mindset where this is my journey. Like, what do you want your legacy to be, man? You got to set the goals. You got to figure out what you want. And you got to go get it.
I love that because, honestly, I came from a pretty broken childhood, and, it's like what helped me is this mindset shifting throughout the years and, constant involvement. But, over that time period, I mean, it's a learning curve, everything you're doing. And I like this 2% rule that you have. There's always people, again, that I find that are asking me like the how. How do I actually change the mindset? How does it happen? Are you able to put an answer to that?
For me, I think it was really hitting rock bottom. Like my mom died when I was 24 from cancer. And like she was only 46 or 47. And I'm 46 now, which is crazy to think about. She never got to live, like her life up to that point was for us. Like she was the best mom in the world. And she had goals and dreams and things she wanted to do and see that she never got to see. Like just realizing, I kind of got off topic, but like how precious this life is and how you really do create your reality with your thoughts. Total tangent there, but like if you ask for the how, for me, it was really like just hitting rock bottom and making a decision, choose and act.
It really sounds like the culmination of an investor profile. You know, a lot of people even will come into the game of investing. And to be honest with you, I mean, I talk to a lot of people, I listen to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just hear people that have no idea who they are, zero clue where they're going, what's going on around them. You know, I like to say there's really three types of people in life: people who are going to make things happen, people who are going to watch things happen, and then there's people who are saying, what the hell just happened? You know, and you got to figure out like who you are and be careful if you're that last one, you know?
Yeah.
But
It's funny you said it, because I used to write in my journal, like I used to say there's two kinds of people: the people that wait for things to happen and the people that make things happen. So
yes, exactly.
very similar
And
mindset.
you just gotta keep going, you know, keep making things happen.
Yeah.
And as you're, you know, that's where the real evolving happens. And when people come into the game of investing, they tend to just watch a YouTuber and follow suit. In your case, it sounds like you've done that a couple of times and lost some money a couple of times.
Yep.
But it also sounds like, again, you've evolved so much. So how would you go about actually finding the suitable, the right investor profile for yourself? Because there's young investors out there who are going to be watching this. There's older investors who are going to be watching this. Investors who are going to try to pivot their strategy based on what we're talking about right now. How do you recommend actually understanding your investor profile and building it accordingly?
I would say, again, like, know thyself. Know what makes you comfortable. Know what do you want? Like, so I manage my niece and nephew's Roth IRAs. They're both like just in college. Zach's about to graduate college, and I have them in a Schwab Growth Fund or ETF in the popular dividend ETF. And I try to get them interested in it. They have the time. They can sit on that S&P 500, and just keep dollar cost averaging in. So I mean, if you look at that's the best advice I can give them for young people. Like, just learn the basics, find a plan, stick to it. You got time to make mistakes. You got time to learn. You got time to grow. For those of us that are older, like, you got to get more serious. And it's so like poo-pooed upon in the groups here to talk to financial advisors. But man, talk to financial advisors. I don't know if you know the guys, Invest Talk, KPP Invest Talk. They have a pretty popular podcast. I have a solo 401k through my business, and people are like, well, you're giving up, this 1%, you're da-da-da-da-da-da. Ari, I can't leave my stocks alone. I know mathematically I should put my money in VU and never check it, never look at it. And I'm pretty good at that, but most of my money that I still manage is in a couple of the big funds, but I still need to scratch that itch, right? So I know that I'm never going to beat these professional investors, and they have a very similar philosophy of how they're value investors and stuff, and that's like where I'm at now. I give them that, and I love looking at it. I'm like, oh, they put me in a couple really good stocks that are up 100%. I'm like, I never would have thought of that stock, and that's, again, I know myself, so that scratches that itch to buy these individual stocks. But yeah, you've got a plan, man. I have notebooks full of like goals and plans where I just graph out the math. I'm like, I need to do this, get this much in here by this date. And what's that saying? If you're not planning to succeed, you're planning to fail. Like, you've got to figure it out. Talk to people smarter than you, devour all the books and podcasts you can, and just get to work, man.
Your story, it sounds like there's been a couple of times where you got invested and then lost.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you did a fair amount of research. You were doing the research. You were doing the homework. So how do you enter the game of investing? How do you start this without losing money? And how is it that after doing that research, you ended up losing the money? I guess that's where the real lessons, the real gem of the lessons that you have are, because if we can avoid the mistakes that you made, we'll be better off. Yeah. But yet you did the homework and the research. So what happened?
FOMO, the fear of missing out. Like, that's a real thing. When, especially after COVID, where everyone's just making money hand over fist on every stupid penny stock, Mara and Neo, and like, I'm just watching all these people on YouTube making all this money. I'm like, well, I should be doing this, and at that point I had my plan. I had my 2 ETFs that I was dumping money in, and looking back now, knowing that if I just would have kept investing in those 2 ETFs for the last 20 years, I'd be 7 figures right now. But I guess we all think we can do it better than the next guy, better than the last guy. But be honest with yourself. I mean, what's the odds of you picking that lucky horse versus, buying the market, getting these guaranteed returns? Because here's the big thing. All that time that I was wasting learning how to value stocks, researching the stocks, talking to people about the stocks, if I would have just invested in the ETFs and spent that money, that time making more money, selling another gutter job, training another crew member, that would have gave me so much more of an ROI on trying to think that I'm this stock picker that can do it better, that can beat the market. When who beats the market? Like how many, what is it, like 2% of stock pickers beat the market? I'm no Warren Buffett.
It's funny. I was just talking to Brandon from Blossom, actually, the CMO of Blossom.
Yeah.
And we were having this conversation about more recently how both him and I, as we've been investing and on this journey, although we love picking stocks and understanding financial statements, it's the time value of getting your time back and keeping it simple by just investing in what really works well, which is a basket of stocks and an ETF. And then you set it and forget it. You don't even really have to look at it. So are we fooling ourselves as investors, those of us who are still trying to play the stock picking game?
Yeah, but so my brother-in-law, one of the smartest people I've ever met. He used to work, manage big investment portfolios. He's pretty much retired now. He's younger than me. He will recommend some stock picks to me and my wife, and we'll put a small percentage, 2%. We'll invest in these. And I mean, he's put me in some great stocks. Like some of them are up over 100% this year to date. I mean, I would never have guessed.
What do we got? What are some of the names of those stocks?
Sand, it's a gold royalty. Yeah, Sand and G Roy, it's a gold royalty investment. Yeah, he's like freaking genius when it comes to this stuff. So I trust him. And he doesn't always win. We've lost some money on a couple of things we've invested in with him. He's real big into like mining. I think he put us in Cameco, that uranium miner, like a year ago when uranium was before it took off, and that's up over 100%. And smart guy. But yeah, so if you set your goal where, hey, like 90% is going into these things, and you know what, I'm going to try with this 10%. I'm going to take some risks because I mean, you never know. You can hit a few out of the park, but be realistic with yourself.
So in other words, build this foundation, maybe the S&P 500, maybe some other broad market, index fund, whatever it is, but build that foundation and have some money to gamble 5-10%. Where do you think most investors go wrong?
History and the data shows us that you're not going to beat the market. I mean, statistically, you're not going to beat the market. So why do we keep trying? Why do we keep thinking we're going to? And I think it's.
Let me double down on that. Why do you think we can continue to think that way?
Because we're human, man. We always think we can. I mean, it's a natural human tendency or whatever, instinct. But I think one of the big things, and you had talked about this in one of your recent videos about switching from dividend to growth because of your age. And it's that flexibility of mind. Like that is a key to this whole thing. You can try one thing. If it's not working, man, you got to be able to pivot. And a lot of people just double down. Like you read the forums where like these covered call ETFs, some of these people are like, why the F are you not investing in these? These are like, if you're in the income, you got to be in these. But yeah, it turns out like I bought a bunch of I put like 20 grand into those covered call, and the NAV erosion was disgusting. I'm like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm like, this is, if I'd have put this in VU, this same time period, I'd be up 10%. Now I'm down 20%. But they have their time and place. I love dividends. I'm big on dividends. But yeah, just having that mindset where it's like, this isn't working. Let's pivot, man. Let's not get locked into these dogmatic views of things.
Well, look, I got to say, outright, all due thanks to everybody who's jumped on Masters of the Market. And I've been able to have these amazing conversations, whether it's been CEOs, CIOs, hedge fund managers, or really just the retail investors, because the more conversations I have, the more my mind opens up, different
Yeah.
ideas, different strategies. Am I really doing things the right way? And there's no right way, but there is certainly a pathway forward for investors based on where they're at in their life. And so I got to say, it's been guys like yourself jumping on here and having these conversations that allowed me to feel more comfortable to actually broaden the horizons, change strategies. Do you think enough investors are talking? Like, I know we have Blossom, and I know there's communities out there, but are we really talking? Or are we just kind of finding our own groups? I almost feel like income investors find income investors. Day traders go to day traders. I love Masters of the Market and what I'm doing here because everybody's welcome. And
Yeah.
everybody's got something to teach.
Yeah. And that's what I love about your show. You've had guys that are like, dividends are the way, and you're like guys that are like, dividends are stupid. And I mean, that's how we learn. And just, and I don't know, social media is kind of dangerous, I think, with the human tribal instincts. Like, we want cognitive bias, or what's that called? Confirmation. I think we naturally seek out the things that make us feel better about ourselves and agree with us. But yeah, I mean, growth comes through challenge. I mean, you got to challenge your views, you got to challenge your body. Like, that's how we grow. So yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, we don't talk enough. We just kind of get in our groups and throw rocks at each other like the monkeys we are, I guess.
Humans, right?
Yeah, yep.
Danny, let me put you in the hot seat with this one and ask you outright. Young investors investing into income producing ETFs for the passive income, retire early, whatever you want to call it. What are your honest thoughts on it?
My niece, I have in some growthier. She's a little bit riskier, so we got her in some growth ETFs. My nephew, we have in a dividend ETF and I think a total market index fund. She's destroying them. So 20 years later, she's going to have this larger nest egg where she can then dump the money into these ETFs. I mean, these dividend producing ETFs. So I would say that, history shows us build the wealth and then you can pivot into the dividends. But yeah, like, I got six figures in a dividend ETF, and I should have put that six figures into a growth ETF over the last 5 years. I'd have a lot more money than I do now. So yeah, I would say if you're young, just grow, take some chances.
It sounds like then there's a time and a place for the dividend or
Yeah.
income producing ETFs or investments. What age is that, do you think?
Well, it depends on when you want to retire. Like, I'll be 47 in December, and I want to be retired when I'm 50. And I'm never going to stop working. I love to work. I want to be able, see, and this is a big thing here. You got to know why you're doing this. Because Ari, I hate money. I hate finances. I hate business. I hate all of this. But I want this life where I can travel on better airplane seats, where I can do what I want to do, follow my passions, take long vacations. I think health is like, I'm a health nut, and I want to be able to go fly to South America and get stem cells in my back and stuff whenever it's acting up. So I need a certain amount of money, and then I'm out. Like, I have no desire to buy a bigger house, buy a better car. Like, so I know my why, and you have to define that why. Like, and that's what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps me hungry. That's what keeps me going day after day. It's that why. And I think a lot of people, they're just doing this because it's like a thing that people are doing on YouTube, and they're like, I'm going to do this thing too, but they don't have the why. And that why is powerful. Like, when you have that, that's your fuel. I don't know. It's like, how do you eat an elephant, man? One bite at a time. But if you don't know like what the elephant is or how big it is, like, you're going to get discouraged. So you have that why, and just start chipping away at it. And I guess, one good book I read was the 12-week work year or something like that. I read it years ago, but that really helped me to chunk everything down into these small sections and set these small goals that work towards a larger goal. Because I would get really overwhelmed being so far away, so poor. But if I set like, I'm going to get $10,000, and then that was a huge celebration, and getting my first $100,000. I mean, that was massive. And start with why.
Danny, what is your why?
My why is just to have a great life. I mean, I am, like I said, my mom died. I will be the age that my mom died at. So every day here, brother, is a blessing, man. I love this life. I love my family. I love my wife. I love waking up and seeing the sunshine. I love helping people. And I really want to get to this stage where I can step back from the business, and I want to help children, especially, man. We got so many suffering and sick and neglected kids. And like, I'm extremely passionate about that. And I want to be in that position where I can help these people and my friends. And I just, yeah.
By the
I don't want to have regrets.
By the sounds of it, I mean, you're already a billionaire. I can hear that. And what I've come to realize, because like I said before, coming from the childhood I did and growing up, and I was on a money chase for a while.
Yeah.
And only more recently, it's like you just get this better relationship with money and what we're really doing here. And you stop chasing money, and all of a sudden you start living life, and it's glorious.
Yeah.
And a lot of people miss that. And I'm curious to get your take as to, like, how can we pop that bubble for more investors out there, that this whole thing isn't necessarily about money?
There's so much noise in this modern world. I mean, my wife works with me now, so we're driving our work van this morning and passed a couple groups of kids waiting to get on the bus, and they're all staring like these groups of kids. I mean, it looked like something out of a horror movie. They're just so entranced, and I mean, that's how a lot of us adults are too. And you've got to find a way to silence the noise. And I'll be honest with you. I wrote a book. It's called Shroomed. It's about my journey with psilocybin. I traveled to South America. That's how I broke the bubble. You don't have to go to that extreme measures, but I mean, we're stuck in the matrix, brother. And I honestly don't know. Like, the way that I was wired, I had to hit rock bottom before I was able to break and rediscover the beauty of life. Rock climbing definitely helped me, being, facing death. I recently did an amateur boxing tournament at age 46. So, I mean, you just got to do these things. Just always be living on the edge, challenging yourself, trying to get in that growth mindset. And growth comes through challenge, man. You got to find these challenges, and that's a big topic.
It's funny because I mean, a lot of the individuals that I speak to that were at one point at this rock bottom moment, it has propelled them to heights that are just untouchable for most people. And I'm always, when I get up to speak or when I'm, in the community doing my thing, people always ask me that same question, like, how do I really develop that mindset, that way of living? And it's like rock bottom, it's a rock bottom moment. I don't know if other people can just do it, can just live that black and white. It's almost easy. And to tap out of the money game, because so many investors are in it, the rat race. And I always say at the end of the day, you're on this rat race, but at the end of it, you're still a rat. Like, you got to enjoy the wheel. Speaking of which, hopefully everybody's taking a little bit out of that to at least enjoy life a little bit more. But money certainly is a part of that, making life easier. Investors who are out there who want to get to know, Danny, your portfolio, break down this portfolio. How's it constructed? What's in it right now? Walk us through it.
So we're going to be building a house here. This is a big project for us this fall. So I got a lot of money in some bond ETFs, some very safe liquid positions. I have a lot in some different Schwab dividends portfolio or ETFs. Then my 401k, like I said, is managed by KPP, and they have like a lot of the value stocks, miners. And then that chunk that I like to play with right now, we're in a lot of gold royalty companies. I have a lot in a few of the big REITs. I bought those when they were like crashed. They're doing really good for me, actually. That's probably one of my best performing assets right now.
Really income?
No, what's it? WPC carry, WP carry. Yeah, it's up like 20% since when I bought it with a great yield on the cost. So been super happy with that. Yeah, it's pretty boring right now, to be honest with you.
Why REITs? Why not, these days, I mean, like you said it earlier, a lot of investors are going into these high yielding ETFs that are 20, 50, crazy percentages,
Yeah.
and they're getting a lot of income. So why not go in that direction?
I saw the value in it when I bought it. Like I said, it's up 20% year to date, and I don't think a single covered call ETF is up 20% year to date. Plus, I think when I bought it, I was getting like 7% on the yield, so that's not bad. But yeah, again, it's just you got to do what's best for you, and I don't need that income, but I like to be somewhat diversified, and I'm a big real estate person, so I'm like, hey, this is really easy. I don't got to change toilets, and I'm still invested in real estate. And we also recently we invested in an apartment complex in Houston, Texas, with a group of investors. And to be honest, I kind of hate it, so I don't think I'll do that again. I don't like not having any control over the investment. Like that money's locked up for 5-6 years, and it might turn out to be a really great investment. But I hate that like I can't be part of it. I can't help fix the building.
So are we duping ourselves then with these high yielding ETFs?
I think they serve a purpose. I mean, I will probably be when I hit 50 and I'm retiring, I'm probably going to be switching a lot into that to supplement my income. But I just don't see them beating the growth side of what else I'm in for the lump sum. I don't see them raising the principal that much to where it would. I mean, if you're reinvesting all the dividends, there's an argument to be made. But this would be in my tax account, so they're going to be getting taxed with all the dividends. So when I do the math, it just doesn't work out for me right now. Not saying they might not be where you need to be right now, or whoever's listening to this. I'm just some random guy that's talking to you. But yeah, you just gotta. They don't fit in my plan right now.
REITs pay out dividends. I'm curious to know how much you're bringing in. REITs typically pay. I mean, a lot of them pay out on a monthly basis, or at least the quarterly basis. So how much are you receiving in dividend income, at least from REITs?
WP Carey, I just got their quarterly like a month or so ago. It'll be over 1,000 a year from them. Yeah, so it's not like a huge position. Again, the majority of the benefit of that one has been the growth in it. Like I'm pulling in about 20,000 a year in dividends right now. So yeah, and I'm excited about that because like that's probably a quarter or a third of the portfolio is like focused on these dividends. So I know that like in a couple of years, I'm going to be able to double that, and then I'm the hell out of here, brother.
And it's the real lottery ticket of getting out, being done. Yes. You've done it. I want to ask you, in terms of constructing a portfolio, what's the best approach? How many positions should be in there? Because sometimes you get the investors who will build a portfolio of individual stocks, 50, 60, 70 of them. And at that point, you say, why not go with an ETF? And then you get investors who have ETFs, but they have like 20 of them.
Yeah.
So what's your approach here? And do you think your portfolio as is right now is set up for success, or is there some work to be done in there?
So last question first. I'm pretty happy with where my portfolio is at right now. Like I said, I got a lot of money kind of sitting on the sidelines for this house investment. We're going to try to build and see where that gets us. But it's set up well for what I need right now. As far as setting up a portfolio personally, you can go I like the 3-fund portfolio. I think for like new investors, I think that gives you a little bit of flexibility, lets you pick a little bit of diversity. Individual stocks, like what's Charlie Munger say? Like you need 5 good businesses and you're off to the races. But how many of us can pick those 5 good businesses? So personally, individual stocks, I wouldn't go over 30. I think that if you are really going to spend the time to research these things, like 30 is going to be stretching your time limit to really know these businesses. I don't see anything wrong with like 10 to 20 good stocks, as long as you're diversified across the sectors. And you really have to understand the cyclical nature of the markets too. I mean, that's big. I definitely would research that and try to understand why things are up and down. Try to understand what the money printing does to the markets. I mean, our government's been just running that printing machine for the last 5 or 6 years, just dumping all this trillions of dollars into the markets, and that has huge effects, and that'll have huge consequences too. Which is why I'm in the gold so much lately. And that's been doing really, really well for us. So you got to understand, like it's a complex beast. Step one, man, is increase your worth, increase your income, get that money coming in. I think is so if you instead of spending all this time on these stocks, if you're new, just buy that 1, 2, 3 ETFs and invest in yourself, because that's where the real return comes from, man.
There are so many people who, whether we like it or not, they're watching this right now, and I'm almost inside their head saying it. Danny, man, you had six-figure business. You had the money. You dumped it into the market. There's no way I can ever get there. It was luck for you, or it's not going to happen for me. What do we say to them?
10 years ago, I was sitting in a dark living room eating ramen soup and fucking tuna and crackers with my lights off, cutting up pallets to heat my damn house in the winter. Barely high school educated, man. This, there's a lot of crap wrong with our country right now, but it's still America, man. It's still, if what's that saying? Capitalism works for those who are willing to work, man. I know that's going to trigger a lot of people, but I am as average intelligence, I think about this, like I said, like I'm no Elon Musk, man. And you got to know who you are. Like I love like quantum physics, but my brain doesn't work like that. Like I listen to all these physicists. I'm like, how are these guys so smart? My mind works on like old school physics. Quantum physics blows my mind, but I just think it's so fascinating. But I'm never going to be a quantum physicist. So you got to know yourself. I guess my one superpower is that I can count on one hand, and two of them are my parents, the people that could work day in and day out like I do. Like nobody's going to outwork me, man. Nobody. I routinely outwork kids half my age. And again, like your post today about like it, you got to have that or you don't. Like it can't be taught. So that's my superpower. And once I got that focus to where it was the best ROI, that's how I made my money. I mean, maybe you got to bring value to people. Like that's how you make money. So maybe you can code. Maybe you're like super smart and you can help people do. I mean, there's so many ways to side hustle now with Uber and all these things. And you just, I get all excited talking about this because I just, I love it because it's an exciting time. Like I wish I had the tools that people have at their fingertips now. When I was in my 20s, it'd be a totally different game. But yeah, I mean, you got to believe before you achieve. You got to believe. Yeah,
With that statement, did you ever have imposter syndrome? Like because you got in order to achieve it, we all say it, fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
I'm not ever sure that I really believe in that. I feel like, fake it till you make it for me is just kind of like, come on, man, just do it. I don't know what you're faking. You're just gonna show up and do it. But to your point that you're sharing now, figure yourself out, right? Like understand who you are and then just execute. It kind of sounds similar. But are there ever moments for you, even now on this journey, that you have this imposter syndrome?
What do you mean by imposter syndrome?
So like kind of just feels like, as much as you've achieved what you've achieved because of where you've come from, it's just not you. It's like doesn't feel like you. It's not you.
Yeah, I think a lot of that went away in the last few years. Like when I really let go of my ego and became the man I am, like found my true self, like what makes me tick. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think I feel that way. Not anymore. I mean, I used to have a big chip on my shoulder, like being around all these college educated people. I always felt like I had something to prove. And
that would be the guy who has imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Okay, that was me. Yeah,
That
I was
guy,
that guy
right?
years ago. Yep, absolutely.
So it's I mean just from what I've heard from beginning to now, it sounds like a total transformation, and it's the process of getting to where you are today from where you've been it's incredible, but it tells me and reaffirms that anybody really can do this. And if you had to narrow this whole thing down to maybe 3 steps, a 3-step dance, a 3-step process, what's that dance routine look like?
I would say figure out your why. Like figure out what you want out of this life. And you got to go like, what's that saying about going 7 layers deep? Like you might be like, I want this. Well, why do you want it? And then why do you want what you want? Like you got to dig down to get to the root, because oftentimes you'll figure out, you know what? I really didn't want this top thing. Like all I want is this down here. And then, so, I mean, that can help. But yeah, so you got to know your why. And then you got to figure out what you need to do to get to your why. And then you got to figure out who you are, where your strengths are, because we all got strengths, man. I mean, we all do. It might be something stupid, but you got to figure that out, and like what your gift is to this world while you're here. And I mean, that's, once you figure that out, like you can do some pretty cool stuff. Yeah, so I'd say that's a good 3-step starting area. Those are the questions you should be asking yourself.
Now, if you were to go back perhaps to that little Danny, or the Danny who was just starting out, how would you tell him to maneuver his life as he was going? What would you whisper into his ear in order to set you up today for more success?
I wasted a lot of years with the imposter syndrome, I guess, trying to be someone that I wasn't. Like, just because like I said, I had that chip on my shoulder, and I wanted to prove to everyone that, I was, even though I didn't go to college, like I'm intelligent, I deserve to be here with these high functioning people. But it turns out, like all along, that I didn't want to be there. And I wasted a lot of energy trying to be there and trying to be that guy that I wasn't. So, yeah, I mean, you really can't do this, because you got to live the life. I mean, I wish I wouldn't have wasted those years, but they got me to where I am now. And Ari, I'm a pretty effing happy guy. I mean, I have this wife that is the most incredible woman for me in the world. And it just blows my mind every morning I get to wake up with her. And I have a job, a business that I enjoy. I get to help my employees. I get to make their day and give them bonuses and like brighten their world. And I move back home. I'm with my family again. And then I don't, and like you said, some people will be like, oh, look at this guy, it's just all sunshine and rainbows. But man, buddy, I've been knocked on my ass by life so many effing times. So many times. I mean, I got scars. Yeah, figuratively and literally been knocked on my ass so many times. But, I always get up, and eventually, you get up the mountain, man. I don't know. You gotta take joy in every part of this life, the good and the bad. And is this a motivational podcast or a financial one? Because I'm rambling, buddy.
Look, each of these episodes is tailored to the individual who's on it. And I think your story is just it's powerful. It's very motivating, because there's so many naysayers out there. There's just so many people who have the excuses, and it's very rare there's an opportunity to have somebody on that's actually been through the ringer of life and who keeps bouncing back. And so I want to ask you this question when it comes to financial freedom, because it sounds like you're already financially free. And I'm not talking necessarily just about having X amount of money, but what does financial freedom really look like to you, for a guy like you who came from what you came from, went through what you went through? It's
the fact that I'm even like getting close to this position is, I mean, I'll get emotional here if I, think about what a gift this is. It just looks like being free to live the life I want to live, like to not be in that rat race, man, to be outside the matrix. Because I decided years ago, like sitting in that room, that the way out of this game, because I just hated it so much, this game, the rat race. I'm like, the only way out of this is to beat it. And so this is like my journey to beat the game. Yeah, I mean, and some people have problems that dwarf mine. You know, I mean, there's people I've met along the way that have lived lives that are just so insane. It's hard to even fathom like the pain that these people have gone through. So I'm blessed. I grew up in a loving family. You know, we didn't have much, but God, my parents were the best, absolute best. Yeah. So financial freedom just means being free to do what I want, live the life that I want, and help the people I want to help, and just have a good time, man.
Danny, wow, what I've gathered from this, I mean, is really keep investing simple, keep bouncing back, just never give up, understand
Yeah.
who you are, and keep on keeping on.
Yes, sir.
Investors, I gotta say, Danny's story, you just heard it, equally as powerful as anything out there. His portfolio is totally available to all of you on Blossom as he keeps it simple and continues to trudge on to just about now get into that 7-figure club. So, Danny, we got to find you there on Blossom. Everybody go to his profile to find out what exactly he's invested in and how he's moving and grooving in the market. But I want to thank you for jumping on Masters of the Market, sharing those insights with us. Most importantly, man, the motivation and inspiration, I think we all could have used that more than anything. And investors, until the next go-round of Masters of the Market, we'll catch you all in the next one.